Hi everyone, welcome back. Ratios, as I start the ratios, not going back to the really basics of what the ratios are, but let's see what we can do with them. If the two numbers are even, we can halve the numbers. So if they're both even, so if it ends in a 2, a 4, a 6, an 8, or a 0, so they both end in a 2 and a 4, they end both even. They both end in a 2 and a 6, so they're both even. They're a 6 and an 8, they're both even. So if I halve the 4, I get 2, and if I halve the 2, I get 1. So that's a simple way of saying the ratio of 4 to 2. Could always look at it and go, if you had 4 coins and you had 2 coins, like say $1 coins, and these are all $1 coins, and I could say, okay, what's that? I've got those 2 compared to that 1. It'd be nicer actually if I wrote it probably that way. You can see it better that way. That's a 2 to 1 and a 2 to 1, and all together that's just a 4 to 2. So have a look at this one. I could do the same comparison and look at $1 coins and do it. This is even. So if I halve that, I get 1, and if I halve that, I get 3. Now when I talk about we're halving, what we're actually doing is we're going to divide by 2. So how many times does 2 go into 4? Twice. How many times does 2 go into 2? Once. How many times does 2 go into 2? Once. How many times does 2 go into 6? 3. Now I'm going to talk that way for a moment. They're both even, so 2 into 6 goes 3 times, and 2 into 8 goes 4 times. Now one more, but this time we're going to go further. How many 2s go into 16? I do have people in classes who will struggle with that. They can always just pick up their calculator if allowed and just go 16 divided by 2. But I really want students to understand, even if they do it on their fingers, that's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 2 into 16 goes 8 times, but a lot of students will know that halving 16 was 8, but I still think it's good to think of 2 into 16 goes 8 times. Now 2 into 12, so you can go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So how many times did we go in? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now they're still both even, and because they're still both even, we can halve again. So half of 8, or how many 2s go into 8, and we've got the 4, and how many 2s go into 6, and we've got the 3. Now, looking at this topic here, I'm only dividing by 2 and I'm only dividing by 5. And the reason is, most students, even if they're terrible at their times tables, can figure out very quickly their 2s and their 5s. So I only want to do the questions to start with 2s or 5s. Now, this number's even, but that one's not. So if I divided the 10 by 2, I'm going to actually do it for a moment. How many 2s go into 10? That's actually 5. So if I halve 10, I get 5. If I halve 5, that's where people come unstuck. It's actually 2.5. So if you had $5 and you wanted to halve it, you would get $2.50 each, or you get $2.50 each. But I'm not wanting to look at the halving. So technically that's mathematically correct. But when we say simplify ratios, we want to write them in the smallest numbers we can, where they're not a decimal and they're not a fraction. So we're just looking at how can I make that into whole numbers that aren't so big. So 5 will fit into 5 and 5 will fit into 10. Now if you think of your 5 times tables, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, they all end in either a 5 or a 0. So if you're seeing a 5 and a 0, you can divide them by 5. A 5 and a 0, I can divide them by 5. A 0 and a 5, I can divide them by 5. So how many times does 5 go into 5? And it's once. How many 5 times does 5 go into 10? And it's twice. So 5 and 5 is 10. How many 5s into 15? If I use my fingers, I can go 5, 10, 15. So 5 into 15 goes 3 times. Now a lot of people don't need that, but they can just watch it for a moment on this video. 5 into 10 goes twice. Now, I can't simplify, or I can halve that, or I could make it thirds of it. But that's not of an advantage because they're the smallest numbers we can get without going to fractions or decimals. So this one over here, how many 5s into 20? 5, 10, 15, 20. So if you're really bad at your times tables, you can always write them down. 5 into that is 4. 5 into 15 is 1, 2, 3. So not only on your fingers, you can always write it down as a question. Now 4 and 3 can't simplify any further. So just to wind it up, another one that's even, but this time we're going to go a bit harder. Half of 40. Now a lot of students will look at that one and go half of 4 is 2 and half of 0 is 0. So there's times when it is good to halve. Even number with an even number, so I can halve both. This one's an easy one because half of 2 is 1 and half of 4 is 2. So that works out nicely. It's like simple division. So you could go how many 2's in the 40? So if you wanted to, you could go how many 2's in the 40, and you could write it in the old-fashioned way of writing the sum out. And 2 into 2 goes twice, and then you got 2 in, there's nothing left over, so 2 into 0 is 0. And then you could go 2 into 24, you can go 2 into 2 goes once, and 2 into 4 goes twice. You might notice when I do it here, I'm doing the same as I do there, but without writing the divide symbol in. So we've got half of 4 is 2, which is the same as what we did there, and then the 0, and half of 2 and half of 4. Now they're still both even. I want to really make a note that they're still both even. So because they're still both even, we can go further and halve both of them again. Or how many 2's in the 20. So some people will go how many 2's in the 20, and they'll go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, and they get there 10 times. Or a lot of people will look at half of 20. So half of 12 is 6, or you can go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, or you can write it down. They're still both even. And because they're still both even, you can halve the 10, you get a 5, and you halve the 6, and you get a 3. So there's enough on the first video. I'll make another video in a minute where I'm going to make it not 2's and 5's, and we'll go with the numbers that people have more trouble with. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please just let your friends know.